Alright, now that our Shopify store is connected to Sagify, we will go through the settings and set up the store and your Sage account. So the first setting we'll look at is under the Sage Accounts tab. These are where you can select your default accounts where invoices, customers, and inventory items will get created, and it'll get assigned these fallback accounts. These are just fallback accounts, so they will be overwritten depending on the customer that it's going into. If that customer has a default GL or sales account, same with your inventory items, but they're just accounts you should set up in case something does go wrong. So accounts receivable account, I'll leave it on this one. My sales account, this is a blank company file, so I don't have too many, but I'll put it inside of professional fees. Inventory, my only one, so I'll leave it. Cost of sales, your COGS, again, pretty standard. Cash accounts, this will be when you are creating Shopify payouts, or if you are using the Smart Receipts feature, it will mark the invoices as paid and it'll go into one of these accounts that you select. Accounts payable, select that. And if you want to track your freight expenses, so if you are charging shipping and you track that through expenses rather than through a sales account, you can assign a freight expense account, or you can just leave it as the default option. So go ahead and click Save. Next is the Sales Order tab. This is if you intend to have a mix of sale orders or sale invoices in your Sage. So maybe you are selling to B2B or B2C, and your B2B customers, you want them to be created under sales orders versus your B2C customers, so directly to a customer. Then you want that maybe as a sale invoice, so this is where you can set it up. So you can just turn on create sales orders, and then you need to assign a trigger for Sagify to know whether it's going to create a sales invoice or a sales order. You can see there's several options right now that are available, like all unpaid orders could be entered as a sale order. So maybe if they had net terms, this would be a good way to sort of catch all those. Another popular way is through order tags, and I'll do that in this demo. So I'll use the order tag called wholesale. So basically any order that is tagged in my Shopify as wholesale will get written as a sale order versus a sale invoice. Some other ones that will probably be available by the time you're watching this, but order meta fields, customer tags, customer meta fields, it's pretty customizable to map how you have it set up. So you might have, for example, in your backend in your Shopify store, something that automatically tags your orders or your customer, or a meta field when these orders come in, and that's what you would need to set up in your Shopify store if not already set up. Next option, use Sage internal sales order numbering instead of Shopify order numbers. So by default, the sales order is going to use the Shopify order number as the sale order number. If you wanted to increment or just use the next available sales order number in your accounting system, then you can check on this item and it will then use that for you. But I'll leave it unchecked. I just want the Shopify order number to be the order number so I can easily look it up. Next setting is the purchase order number detection, so it can detect purchase orders. A few ways you could do it. Whether you're using Shopify Plus, they have an inherent B2B PO field on checkout that your customers can fill out. This will pick that up if you're using that. If you have a custom attribute key, like some sort of app that's sending it through, maybe it's like PO number, then you can tell it to look for that. And I can show you what that might look like on an order. So for example, these additional details are called custom attributes. So if you had a PO number here, a PO field, you can then write it as it is and it would pick up that PO number for you. So that's one way of doing it. Custom meta field, similar principle. If the order has a meta field, then it could pick it up there. I'll just leave on Shopify Plus for now. You can set up a default ship via settings. So in your purchase order, when you're creating a purchase order, you can have it to be automatically always set to one of these predefined ones. So you could then write UPS ground, and then all orders come in will be set to this if you'd like. So I'll leave that on. You can also assign a sales representative. I don't have any sales representatives in this demo company file, but they would all appear here. You can assign sales representatives to it. Same thing with default terms. We can have it so it'll always say something like net 30 here. Net 30. This is just a fallback. So if you know all your orders are always net 30, you can just put that there. But if Shopify has an order and it's for some reason has net 7, it will overwrite the net 30 and it would say then net 7 on the invoice. But some people do want a nice default to go back to. Enable smart receipts. If this is checked off, what will happen is the sale order will get entered. It will then get converted to a sales invoice and then marked as paid. So if you want that full cycle to always go through, then you can have it do that for you. Basically, it's an option, but I will turn it off for this demonstration. We just want things to get entered as sale orders. So we'll save that. Next will be our sales invoices. The first option is to choose how you want your sales invoices to be entered. Do you want all your orders to go under, all your orders to have matching customers in your Sage? So for example, if John Smith is a Shopify customer, do you want a John Smith customer in your Sage? So it would then make a customer profile per order you receive and or look up that customer to see if it finds a match. So that's this first option. The second option is if you want all your orders to go under a single customer. For example, I have this 00 cash customer. If I select that, all my Shopify orders that don't become sales invoices or sale orders will go under this 00 cash customer. So this might be like an online sales customer. All your Shopify orders just go into this online sale one. So for this demonstration, I will funnel all these orders into a cash account. If you have particular customers that might need overriding, for example, you want all your Shopify orders to go into a online customer or a cash account like this one, but maybe you have 1 or 2 customers that need to go into their own profile, you can then go into your Shopify, set up a tag to tag this customer, and you can say something like special customer, and then that special customer can get assigned to a particular account. So all orders will go into this cash account, but if they're tagged with special customer, then they'll go into this customer account. So you can set up all these different rule-based matchings if you want. You can also then say this customer is tax exempt, so we won't put taxes on it. Another override, you can do sort of like a more generic one. You can just say, again, special customer. And if this is set, well, then it'll ignore this setting unless if it has this tag. And if it has this tag, it will then look for this customer. So if you want John Smith to not be in this generic cash account, but you have a John Smith customer already in Sage, it will then find John Smith, put him in there if he has this special customer tag. And this tag could be anything. It could just be like John Smith, and it will also find it. We'll turn that off as well. You can have generic GL accounts. So your GL accounts will always be set to the default customer profile it's going into. But if you have specific GL accounts that have specific requirements based on an order, for example, maybe a wholesale order comes in and you want that to be assigned to like a wholesale GL account, you can then tag orders with wholesale and then assign it to a different one. For example, let's imagine this 4900 is a wholesale account. Well, then you can have all your other ones that are going into the professional fees, which we set up prior in our Sage invoices, or our customer default. Like we set up here, we had 4,000, so all the things are going to go into this 4,000 account. But if we had set up this one, if the order has a tag, it will then write the invoice and the line items into this 4900 account. I'll turn that off. Job mapping. If you use job mappings and job IDs for cost center for call centers or cost centers, I should say. You can also set that up by enabling it. Again, you can have a specific tag. I don't have any job IDs in this company profile, but you can then have a tag that would say, like, if an order has, job ID A as a tag, well then, and you want to track that particular cost of that sale, you can then assign the job ID, and on the invoice, it'll be assigned that job ID for you. Another setting here, use Sage internal invoice numbering instead of Shopify order numbers. Pretty self-explanatory. Like our sales orders one, it'll just use the internal Sage number instead of assigning the Shopify order number. So by default, the system is going to use this as your order number or whatever you have here. If you don't want all orders to be entered or particular ones to be skipped, you can set that up with a specific tag here just by saying like skip on a order. So you need to create an order tag that would automatically tag these orders for you to skip. Sagify will look for this tag. If it's present, it'll skip it. Sort line items by SKU, a little self-evident, but it will sort them by ascending or descending SKU numbers. Right now, it'll by default just sort of do it by description or how they're coming in from Shopify. Just some formatting things. You can add a separator row between different items if you'd like. Clean up your invoice. If you want to include the Shopify transaction fees on your invoices, you can do that, and then you can also assign it an account. If you have GST and tax inclusive, you can put that here. Separate line item discounts is a separate line item. So if you discounted a particular product in your store and you want the discount to actually appear on another line, so let's say you sell something for $100, but you give a $10 discount on it, the invoice by default would say $90. If you select this option, it would say $100. Then there'd be another line item which would say -10, and it would get assigned to this GL account if you'd like. This way you can track your product discounts to know how much discounting you're giving to customers. There's an option to skip $0 orders. Maybe these are just sample orders or sponsorships or giveaway things, and you don't really need those to go into your accounting system. Those are typically $0 orders, so you can then skip those items or skip those orders completely. You can then be a bit more granular and say, well, if there's $0 line items, I also don't want that on the invoice for whatever reason. You can skip this. We have the Shopify order number in the customer PO field. This just helps track things. You can turn it off, but it'll basically create an invoice that will set the Shopify order number here. So if your order number was 1234, it would also put it here. This just helps searchability, but if you don't like it there and you want to use it for something else, you can turn it off. Smart receipts for sales invoices. Again, similar concept to the smart receipts for sales orders, except this time the invoice is entering, and then as soon as it's entering, it's getting a payment assigned to it, so it's making a receipt, and it just marks it as paid. So then if you want to, depending on how you handle Shopify payouts, you can mark all these individual invoices as paid, and then when you do a reconciliation for your payments, you can then just quickly assign them to that payment that you're receiving. I will turn it off though because I want everything to be entered as unpaid, because of the way I will do payouts, I use these unpaid invoices, then I assign them all to a receipt. Just different ways of doing it. So let's save this. Customers. So now this is anything that has to do about matching. By default, we will create customers when they don't exist. So if Sage can't find it, it will create the customer for you. If you don't want that to happen, well, you can just turn this off. Advanced customer matching. So by default, Sagify will look for a number of criteria to potentially find matches between your Shopify and your Sage. If you want to tell Sagify, how to find a customer right away, you can do so. So for example, customer meta field, you could assign all your customers a meta field, and you can maybe call the meta field Sage ID, and then all those customers get tagged with their Sage ID. Well, then Sagify can look for this meta field right away, skip this whole looking process, and then it will look for this key. When it finds this key, it'll then find that value, and that value should match the Sage ID in your customer or in your Sage. Same thing with product tags. You can assign the Sage ID as a product tag on their customer, and it will match it for you. And same thing with order tags. It will you can then assign a Sage ID as an order tag. It'll look for that Sage ID. I'll leave it off because standard matching is going to work for us. This is the part where the customer is actually getting created. You can sort of set up a default so it speeds up your process of actually creating a customer. It just makes a suggestion. It doesn't automatically do it. So you'll see when we're processing orders, you'll be able to override whatever it does, but it can give you a close approximation of how you might set it up. So basically, customer ID source, do you want it to be the customer's name or a company name? By default, it'll do company name, but if you want it to always be the customer name, you can have it selected like this. This slider represents how many characters of this first person's name you want to use. So for example, you can see the ID preview John Smith. If his name was longer, you could use those characters. You can just use you can skip it so it just does his last name. You can add a character, so you can just play around with this. We'll do John Smith, and then his last name, we'll do 5. You can have it go uppercase, lowercase, leave it as is. We'll leave it as is. And if you want to add like a prefix to it, so let's say you had a retail order tag, you can then put an R, and this would be, for example, retail customers, it would add an R in front of John Smith 001. Just some options to sort of customize it, but the default will be fine. Taxes, a few options you could choose. You can set a Sage tax ID. I don't have any tax code set up here, but it would look for that tax code, put the tax code inside of the invoice. I'll show you that here. Right? If there's a tax code, it would look up this tax code, set the tax code here. Alternatively, we could have tax codes as line items on the invoice. So each one would be a line item, and then you can assign the GL account to those ones. There'll be in each one for each county, city, or however it's broken down. If you don't want all those line items, we can aggregate it to a single. It'll just sort of take all those sums, aggregate the sum, and then write a single line item for the sales tax, and it gets assigned to this GL account. I'm going to leave it on this one so you can see what that looks like. Then we have state-based GL account overrides. This is if you want to handle your home state different than your out of state. So maybe you're doing something differently, assigning them to different GL accounts if they're not in your home state. So you can just sort of define your home state. So if you're in California, your out of state tax account might be something different like this. And then you can select your in-state one. So then it'll look for if this order is in California. If it is, well, then it assigns to this 2310 account. If it's not, if it's out of California, then it'll assign it to 2320. Inventory synchronization. This is if you want to use the inventory feature in Sagify, which will allow you to look at your inventory and help sync them. So I'll turn that on so we can see that. Create products in Sage 50 when processing orders. Turn that on if you want products to be created when they're not found. If an item is not found, it'll skip that invoice. So if you don't want that to happen, you'll need to either turn this on to create the inventory item, and then it'll create it, or you then create it manually, then rerun it, and then it will process. But let's do that. This is an option if you have a particular setup with some like leading characters in front of your inventory item. Some people like to add like an X or something in front of it to symbolize something, and if you don't want, and if your Shopify store is different than your Sage, you need them to match, so we can sort of do like this stripping of the character inventory if you want. General journal entry. This is if you're going to use the general journal processing feature. This will either create a general journal entry for your point of sale settings. So it'll basically take all the sales that were sold within a period on your point of sale, and it'll just create, instead of an invoice, it'll just create a general journal entry. So just have like the cash that was sold, the taxes, the refunds, etc., etc. If you don't want to do a general journal entry, but you still want to process point of sale orders, you can then just turn on create sales invoices per order. This will make one sale invoice per order essentially. So I'll leave it on general journal entry so we can look what that looks like. I'll just set up some accounts here. And we'll include the Shopify fees on this general journal entry. And then this is for the non-POS orders, so I'll just set this up as well. And we'll include the fees on these ones as well. We'll save that. So these are just two types of orders. So you can have point of sale orders and online sale orders. It'll separate it. It'll create a general journal entry for each type, and then for the point of sale, it'll also then create a general journal entry per register. So if you have multiple POS systems in your store or multiple locations, it will then also make an entry for each one. Shopify payouts, if you're using the Shopify payouts, there's two different ways you can do it. You can do the general journal entry, which is what we're going to see later with the POS stuff, which will just create a summary journal entry for that payout. So if you don't really care to have detailed invoices, you just want like the raw sums into your accounting, and as long as they're matching Shopify payouts, this might be one way of doing it. It'll kind of skip having to import everything that you need. Or you can do a smart receipt, which will, as it says here, create sales invoices for each order and then applies a receipt. So if you're using this method, then you won't want to use some of the other processing methods. This is just going to import a sales invoice, convert it to a receipt, and that receipt's going to match the bank reference of that payout. So when you or your bookkeeper might go in, they can look up the bank reference number, find that series of invoices that match or that are comprised of in that Shopify payout, and you'll be able to reconcile your books that way. So I will show you that way. And now all our settings are set up. So we're ready to process. Okay, we've added our store, we've added our settings. Let's now actually import orders and actually use the app. There's lots of ways you can use it. You can see on the left here we have our processing mode, sales orders and sales invoices, sale orders, refunds, specific orders, general journal entry. If you're on the sales order and sales invoices, this is going to bring in orders from your store, and it's going to process both sale orders and sale invoices if you have this set up, meaning you want some orders to become sale orders and you want some Shopify orders to be sales invoices. So you can choose to do sort of all of that at once. If you want to just do your sales invoices before you run your sales orders, you can then do that. If you're only ever doing sales invoices, then you probably haven't turned on the create sales orders. This won't even be visible. It will just always be by default sales invoices. So that's that. You can then process refunds separately if you want, but if your date range is wide enough, you'll catch refunds anyways. Another method is the specific orders. This will allow you to simply copy an order number, paste it here, and it'll only import that one order. And then general journal entry is going to create a general journal entry that's just sort of doesn't create invoices, won't track your inventory. It's just creating the raw sums that you sold within that period on your point of sale system and on your online store. So let's go ahead and do the sales orders and sale invoices. We'll leave it on that. On the right side, you can then select your start date and your end date. So you can either come in on the first of the month or on the first of the month and then work on the preceding month. So today we're January 4th. I could say, okay, I want to import now December 1st to the 31st. And then you can press run, and it's going to import all your orders from the store that happened within this period. You'd probably only want to run this if you don't really care to have your books up to date. Typically what most people do is they'll actually come in on like one day. So let's assume we're January 4th. Well, we are January 4th today. we can then say, okay, I want to import orders on the 3rd. So you're just kind of following your the preceding day. So you can import all of yesterday's orders. Or you can do, okay, it's Monday, I'll just go from the 1st to the 4th. And that's one way of doing it. You can also just do it on the same day, so January 4th to January 4th. It's going to pick up all orders up till like now. And then you can kind of just keep running this throughout the day by processing, because it will never do duplicates. So let me just isolate some orders that we can import. So we'll do Friday, which was the 2nd to today. So let's go Friday to today, and we will import these orders. So we press process. Now here's some screens that you'll start seeing. So this is customer selection screen. Could not find a matching customer. Please select a customer to assign to this order. If no customer exists, then click Create New to automatically generate one based on the Shopify customer. So you'll say, okay, we couldn't find a customer for Kyle McKenzie. So you can either click on the order link here to look at this customer and see why it might not have been found. And so this is a wholesale customer. So these customers are going to get created as their own individual profile. So it wasn't able to be found. Recall that our retail customers are always going to go into our cash account. So I know this customer doesn't exist, but if you knew it did exist, you could search maybe Kyle, and then it would pull up, and you can say, okay, oh no, it's this one, use the selected one, but I know this customer doesn't exist, so we're going to create a customer. And now it's telling me to confirm the ID I want to create, and this is fine for me. And if you wanted to override it, you could just change it and go, K McKenzie and 001 maybe, or just 1. Accept, and now it's created it. Now we have the inventory selection screen. This pops up when it can't find the inventory item. So it's saying this 1-1280 item wasn't found, and here's all the items in my store. So in my Sage, you can see I don't really have many. So we'll just you can either search for it, select an item until it's this one, or just create the new item. So we'll go ahead and create it. And another item wasn't found, this 1-9500. We'll create that, and we'll create this one, and we'll create this one, this one. Now for these created items, it wants us to select the GL account, so it goes into the right one. So this 1-128, I'll just put them in some random accounts, but you will obviously select your GL sales account, your GL inventory account, your cost of goods sold, and you just got to do this for each new inventory item we've created. Alright, so now it's on the next order. We're on processing 2. This one wasn't found either, but let's just pretend it went into this ABC customer. So we can say use selected. This inventory item wasn't found, but I'll just say it's this item. I'll say it's this item. So now I'm just telling Sagify it's this item. Sagify is looking for SKUs to match your inventory items. We'll create this customer, and let's create these items. Again, selecting the newly created inventory item, the GL accounts. So it wasn't found either. We'll create this customer. Let's create some items. You'll get these screens pretty infrequently, assuming all your inventory items are already created in your system, all your customers are pre-existing. We're just seeing this a lot more because this is a very new Sage company that I created. Let's just use this item. We'll use this one. And then finally get this screen here. So Sagify will also ask you if you want to update your customer information. So it'll say like, the Sage customer has no email address, so it's empty. Do you want to use the billing and shipping email address, or you can enter your own? You can just keep it as is. Let's not update it, but it'll kind of update the customer information for you, so your systems are now being in sync. And then you get a nice little summary here. So we have 4 inventory items were created, 3 invoices were created, 3 customers were created, and then 24 inventory items were created. So let's go look at a few of the examples, and let's remember I did select some wrong accounts for some things, so let's go see if I can pick a right one. So let's go look at this order I just imported. It was a gift card. Let's see. List. All right. So we could see that this customer ordered a gift card, so the gift card is here, $100, and this was a retail customer, so it all went into this single cash account. And the Shopify order number is in your invoice number, matches the date, and then it also goes into the customer, and then we selected a default of UPS ground, but even though this was an item that didn't ship, it didn't get overwritten. Let's look at another one, and let's look at a wholesale order. So this is now a sale order we created. So you can see this customer has this order tag wholesale and all these items, and hopefully I chose the right ones. So now let's go look at that. Sale order number. So we have a sale order created for $15.72 and 93 cents. $15.72 and 93 cents. And this time you see it went into this ABC company because I selected that company for this person. And the shipping value is still there. And all the item breakdown is there as well. But I had selected, this is when I was selecting all the different items. Let's see, maybe Kyle McKenzie. Oh, we made a customer for this person, so let's go look at this one. This is a good one. Okay, so here's a good example. Wholesale customer, Kyle McKenzie. And then, so the customer ID was created, Kyle McKenzie 1. And then the total matches 355.20, 355.20. And you can see all the inventory items are matching up. So we have a Catalina, 1-9500, 9510. There was some discounts on this order, so those got brought over because they're line items, so minus $4.40. This 1-1290, 1-130 is there, 1-3600 is there, 1-6000 is there, 6000 is there. Quantities are matching, and the sale order goes like this. Now, we don't have to do a date range. We can also just do a sale order number or an invoice number. So, example, if we look at this particular order, 91532, I could go into Sagify, put in the order number, and it couldn't find this redo item, so I'll just create it, and it didn't create. I'll create this straw hat, assign the GL accounts, and it just does this one order. So it created one invoice and 2 inventory items. We're going to go look at it, and there's also a nice log so you can kind of see what's going on. There's not a black box, so it gives you some nice details as to what happened. So let's go look at this one order we just imported. So we're looking at this one, Matthew Glenn. So invoice created for $66.37. It's a retail customer. So it went into our 00 cash account. Shipping information's all there. And they ordered this little exchange product for $4.38, and then a 1-9520 hat for $49.49. So you can see the order is entered, and this order got entered as unpaid, so it needs to get paid because the payout hasn't been received yet. So that's one way of doing it. Let's now make a general journal entry and how that looks. So if we take January 1st and then we process it, you get a nice summary of what was created, so you can go look. But basically this store doesn't have a point of sale, but it did do online stores. So we basically took the 1st of January, which would be these 4 orders. And if we go into Sage and we look up general journal entry list, and we'll change the date. So what you're seeing here is what was created. So this is if you don't really care about your invoice. Invoice is like tracking inventory, tracking customers, and you just want to use Sage or Shopify as your source of truth, and then you just want the raw amounts to be recorded. You could do a daily summary. So this is a sum. If we added these up, it would total $339. Basically, it takes out the sales you did, does a crediting balance. These are the fees across the 4 orders. And so that's one way of being able to run Sagify, where you might not just want all your information. So let me just make sure this is right. So instead you can skip all this and just wait for your payout to come out. Click process, and it will sort of run through that whole sequence of trying to find the customer again. Let's just create a new one. Create the items. Create a new customer because Joy wasn't found. So Joy Jarvie 001. These products weren't found, so let's create a new item. And this one wasn't found either. There we go. We could have these all go into a single account, but we wanted them to be separate. So these all could have went into a cash account, but right now it's making it not. So there we created 6 invoices. That's what matches our total with one process. So now what you can go do is take this bank reference number, go into your Sage, look up your receipts, receipt money, list, deposit ticket. This needs to go to this year. Oop, that's amount. I actually need to go back to the first here. There we go. And so here are the 6 invoices we created for matching this reference number. So you can see this was now an invoice. It was marked as paid. So if we went into this actual individual invoice, paid in full, and there's a history audit trail now that connects them all together to match the amounts in Shopify. Now you'll see that the $708.85 is what's here, but you really only received $691. So you can either include these Shopify fees on these invoices, which is a setting in Sagify. So that would be under here, right here, include Shopify transaction fees. Then your amount of these 6 invoices, when you take them together, this number here would match the $691.81. But what you can do is if you actually don't want your fees there, you can then just go in and create a separate invoice for this missing $17, and then this will balance all out for you. And now when you go to reconcile this amount, you can then just say all these are matching what that total is. So that's one way of doing Shopify payouts. And I could do an example of that as well. So let's just turn this on, save that, go to payouts, and now let's go do this 684.74, so process. And let's put them all under this ABC customer. Create new item. ABC customer, ABC customer, new item, new item, new item, new item. Okay, let's look at the inventory module. So for inventory, you're going to want to turn on the inventory synchronization in your settings. Then click on inventory, and you will see this list of all your inventory. Now what you're seeing here is the inventory in both your Sage and your Shopify. And what you can see at a glance is if an item is in your Sage only. So this means this item exists only in Sage and it wasn't found in Shopify. So this could be a nice flag for you to say, okay, we're missing some items in our store, or we're missing some items in our Sage. So you can quickly see that on the far right in Sage and Shopify, and there's check marks. So you can see all these items are in Sage, but they're not in Shopify. And if I scroll down, I have this item here, the collection snowboard. It's in Sage and it's in Shopify. So if I go look for 11223344 in my inventory tab, we see it right here. Where there it is, 11223344. And if I go look in our store under products, 11223344, the inventory item exists. So we know that there is a match. And then likewise, if I was to look up 1-9310, so this is in my Sage, but it's not in my Shopify store, you'll see that it doesn't exist. So 1-9180 doesn't exist. And so that's one way you can sort of make sure everything's right, and then similarly it can tell you what's in Shopify, what's not in Sage for you. So that's one feature of the inventory. The other one is actually seeing the quantity. So if we pick on the one that we know about, we have this 11223344 item. We have 29 in Sage, and actually there's 30 on hand, and there's 1 on a sales invoice. And then in Shopify, we have 17 available, with 28 of them being on hand, and then 11 of them being sold. So we can then sync this to match it. So we can say either our Sage 50 is our source of truth or our Shopify is our source of truth. If Sage 50 is our source of truth and we press sync, well then this available inventory is going to get written to here. So it's going to change the amount such that they match. So let's pick on an item I set up that will be easier for us to look at. So we have this Easy Apps Inventory demo product. So you can see there's 100 units of it. So if I go look for Easy Apps, here we go. We have 0 in Sage and 100 in Shopify. So let's go now into our Sage, Easy Apps, and I'm going to just change the quantity. I need to do an inventory adjustment. You know what? Let's just use our app. So this has 100 in Shopify and 0 in Sage. Well, if we actually have 0 in Sage, that means we should have 0 in Shopify. So we'll choose Sage 50 as our source of truth, and I'll press sync. You can select your location. So here we go. Choose your location, target location. And now if we go back and look, it says Sage 0, Shopify 0, and we can actually confirm that here by refreshing the page. And now you can see that the quantities are all 0, and this way you can ensure your store is in sync. Now we can also go back into, let me just add some inventory here. We'll do 100 of the Easy Apps inventory. Let's just assign an amount here. And we'll go save. Okay, let's refresh. So now you'll see that we have 100 in Sage because we just received inventory, and now we want to sync it to our store. So instead of manually going into our store, we can then say, again, Sage 50 is our source of truth. Let's sync it. We want to assign the amounts. Let's assign it to Plattsburgh. Refreshes on us, so now there's 100. And we'll refresh it here. And now we have 100 available in Plattsburgh, so now that they're all back in store. Alright, one thing you can do is if you issue purchase orders and you're frequently receiving inventory because you're buying inventory to then sell, you want to make sure your inventory is always sort of accurate in stock. So one thing you can do is manage purchase orders directly through Sagify. So extending our example, let's buy 250 of the Easy Apps inventory item. So we bought 250 quantities of them. We'll assign a purchase order number, 09009, save. And typically what you would do is you would then take that purchase order. So you'd go look up your purchase order. I should change the date actually. Let's do that now. Save that. Okay, we would take this purchase order, and then you would click on receive, and then this would convert it to a purchase invoice at that point, but we won't do that right now. And so what you can do then is go into Sagify, go onto the purchase orders tab, and it will show you all your purchase orders opened and closed. And you can see here's the one we just made, 0909, and we have 250 units of the Easy Apps invoice demo. And so what you can do here now is take this purchase order, convert it to an invoice because you've now received it from your supplier. You'll convert it to an invoice. Then Sagify will ask you if you want to sync it to your Shopify inventory. You can say yes. You can then choose the location. So let's choose now to put in the shop location. And now if we go look in our Sage and we look at that inventory item, we can see that 250 units were received, so it did get the purchases and receive inventory was created, the purchase invoice was created. And now if we go look in our Shopify store, the inventory quantity should be changed for the shop location. And you put in 100 units. And so that's one way you can have it done. All right, let's look at another thing you can do with creating general journal entries. And if you are selling on Amazon or PayPal, one thing you can do is upload your financial summaries that you receive at the month's end, and you can import it as a general journal entry. So it won't create sales invoices per Amazon order because they're not going through Shopify, but you can upload a document. So I'll show you an example document. You'll be familiar with this. You can download this CSV file from Amazon and also eBay. And it basically just looks like this. It kind of tells you all your orders that you sold within a period, the price, your fees you paid, etc., etc., and then there'll be like a total amount. So what you can do is you can take this CSV file, we can upload it to Sagify, and it will then create a general journal entry with all that data on it, matching the sums and taking out, putting everything into specific accounts, whether you sold through shipping, taxes, refunds. And so you can see it created a balanced journal entry of $21,563.97, and it'll put it into your correct GL account. So selling fees went into a fees discount, Amazon product sales, and then if you don't like the GL account it goes into, you can always edit it yourself. And then you can then go save this number, click save, and then if we go into our general journal entry, and let's do this. Last year to date, all transactions. How about that? There it is. You can then see the entry it just created. So that's one thing you can also do. Another feature you can do is if you have unstructured sales invoice data, for example, like this, or a PDF or a CSV file with a bunch of order data on it, or if like someone just emails you an order, you can just copy paste what they want and paste it in here, and it'll actually create a Sage invoice for you. So let me show you an example of that. I'm going to just copy some random order data. So look at this. Order from ABC company, order with an order number, a date, a bill to, a shipping address, and then some items, and then a shipping cost. And you can just click process. Create an invoice for you. So based off of that information, so customer name, John Smith, bill to this address, ship to this address. You can see the shipping's different. And then inventory item widget 001, gadget GDG002, the SKU, shipping 15, 1 unit at $1.99, 3 units at $45.99, 5 units at $25, and there you go. And then you can edit, obviously, and change it, but we'll just create the invoice. And so create an invoice there for us. And this might just save you some time having to then open this up, create your own invoice. And let's just go look at it. Oh, it's right there. And so there it is. So Sagify is very customizable. There's a lot of rule-based matching you can do. So depending on your workflows, you can set it up how you want. If things need to get changed, and if you're looking for specific ways, then feel free to reach out to us. I'll be happy to make those customizations, those specific rule-based logic for you, build it into the app so that when you just click a button, everything's going to get imported as you want. You don't have to worry about duplicates being entered. Sagify, it looks for those items that already exist. It won't reprocess them. You get this nice log. You can save a log too. If you have issues, you can always save a log, email it to us. We'll look over it. And with that, you should be well equipped with getting ready to import. And with that, you'll be well equipped to start importing orders, speeding up your bookkeeping process, your accounting process. Your team's going to be a lot happier. Things are going to get entered with no errors. It's going to take seconds as opposed to hours. So enjoy, let us know what you think, and if you need any help setting up Sagify, we're here to help you make your accounting life and bookkeeping life a lot less easier, or a lot less harder. Take care.